Tony Blair's first major foreign crisis erupted when he had been in power less than 2 years. The Serbian province of Kosovo was sliding towards civil war, and Blair feared a repeat of the atrocities unleashed by Serb leader Slobodan Milosevic in Bosnia.
In the early 90s in Bosnia, we decided not to intervene. 750,000 deaths later, we realized that we had to.
The Conservatives had kept Britain out of the Balkans. Blair changed this. But when NATO launched a bombing campaign against the Serbs, Milosevic responded by expelling a large part of Kosovo's ethnic Albanian population. Blair believed that only the threat of an American invasion would stop Milosevic. But his close ally, President Clinton, was reluctant to commit American troops to such a remote conflict.
For Clinton to take the step of actually saying, okay, I'm going to insist that Milosevic backs down no matter what it takes, was a huge thing for him to have to do.
As the ethnic cleansing continued, some American papers turned on Clinton. The president thought the British were spinning against him, and during a transatlantic phone call in mid-May, he confronted Blair. Blair's senior foreign policy advisor was listening in.
There was a rant, really, from Clinton, and you could sense that Tony Blair was holding the phone a little bit away from his ear, and when he could get a word in edgeways, he would calmly, rationally explain what he thought would have happened. There was an angry Clinton and a calm Blair.
Slowly, argument by argument, Blair managed to win Clinton round.
And it was only really when Clinton, to his credit, actually signaled that the Americans may be prepared to put boots on the ground that Milosevic folded and the thing was over.
The Serbs withdrew without a fight. This was widely seen as Blair's victory, and it made him a hero with the Kosovan people.
For Kosovans, Tony Blair is a living hero. A few months ago, I visited a primary school in Kosovo, and while I was shaking hands with the pupils, one of them told me his name was Tony. I said, why? And he told me it was because of the huge respect his father had for Tony Blair.
For Tony Blair. I think it was a courageous position from the perspective of what was right, what was wrong. I think the British position was the right one, to move forward and to end this outburst of terrible violence, of mass rape, mass killings in the Balkans.
For Blair, a clear sense of right and wrong would now become the guiding principle of his foreign policy. In Chicago in April 1999, he outlined what became known as the Blair Doctrine.
We have learnt twice before in this century that appeasement does not work. If we let an evil dictator range unchallenged, we will have to spill infinitely more blood and more treasure to stop him later.
My view, as outlined in that Chicago speech, was that we should regard ourselves in political terms living in an international community, that if there was a problem in one part of the world, it would affect the other part, and that we should regard ourselves as under an obligation to intervene and to help. To me, this is an aspect of the modern world in exactly the same way that it matters to us economically, so it should matter to us politically what happens in different parts of the world.
But the conflict in Kosovo had taught Blair a second, equally important lesson.
I believed then, and I've come to believe this even more strongly in relationship to other conflicts, that if the international community is united and presents a united front, and eventually we did in Kosovo, then it becomes a lot easier to resolve these issues with the minimum of bloodshed.
If Europe and America stuck together, they wouldn't need to fight. That was the lesson Blair drew from Kosovo.